Well, good morning, good evening, good. God bless you, Pastor David. Train him coming into your heart, your life, your car, your home, wherever you're listening to this broadcast. Thanking you for tuning in as we prepare our hearts, our minds, our lives, and our families to celebrate this great holiday in our nation that we refer to as Thanksgiving. I want to make certain that we're not so much focused on the fact that the pilgrims came into this particular country and they had the first Thanksgiving feast that they're calling it with the Indians. Nope. For you and me, this is a time in which we are focusing on the God of heaven who provides all things graciously for us to enjoy. And so, as we sit down, as we gather around our tables, and we are often many of us we are breaking bread with our families. Please know that God is in the middle of it, and also please do this: remember the others who may have lost a loved one, where their mom, their dad, their brother, their sister, their son, or their daughter may not be sitting at that table with them this year. Some people may even be having a meal by themselves. Keep them in your prayers. Let them know that you love them, that you are keeping them not only in your prayers but also your thoughts, and also trusting that God is going to be there to comfort them, to strengthen them through. Because the thing is this: as we still live in this earth, God has been gracious to you and he's been gracious to me. Not saying that we've not had tests and trials, even as we've been talking about these things over the last few months. We've all had them. We've all experienced them. But the thing is, God has still been good to us. He's given us time on this earth so that we could be the best people that we can be, so that we can influence others into the kingdom of God. And if that wasn't enough, he's given us promises that says that when this life is over, he has an eternity for you and for me so that we can spend it with him gloriously for the rest of time and beyond. And so happy Thanksgiving to you, trusting that you're going to have a great holiday experience. Now, with that said, I do want to stay within the vein that I've been talking about as we talk about keys to life. I want to continue talking about going to a new level. I've been saying that for the last three or four teachings, making different references to it, letting you know what it takes to get there. One of the things is change, another is rest, recognizing laziness and staying away from that. But the reality is this: going to a new level is not something that's extraordinary for the person that consistently desires to go higher in who are positioning their lives to do just that. You see, going to a new level for me and for many of you, it's a way of life where we're consistently striving to make things better. We're consistently trying to provide a better life for our spouse, our children, grandchildren, grandparents, parents, siblings, and those who are around us. And going to a new level should not be viewed as a spectacular event, as some people makes it appear. It is more common than people realize, because most people go to another level without even realizing it and often without considering it. Many people that go to a new level, want to know something, they don't even talk about it. They just do it. Therefore, it should not be viewed as unusual or something that is for a select few who are attempting to accomplish great things. If you've been working at something for a number of years and you're used to what you earn to make your life better, you have subtly climbed onto a new level. And often that new level is rewarded by your employer in the form of a pay increase, no matter how small or how large. You see, they have brought your life to a new level and you didn't realize that that's what was happening. And the life that you live is most likely better than you had when you were growing up. I know mine's is, because our parents, they would have wanted us to have more. but they couldn't afford it. And so what they did was they made our life the best that they could do. They made it the best that it could be. They made our life what they envisioned that they could do within their means. And as we got older, what we did was we made the home that we lived in or inherited better if we stayed there. We got our own apartment. We made that a little bit better. We purchased our own homes and we made that a little bit better. What you did was you used your education to get a better job or provide a business service that gives you a better quality of life than your parents had as they would have wanted you to. You see, your parents, I know mine's didn't, they didn't want us to relive the struggles that they endured. And being raised in the 60s and 70s, our parents shielded us from a lot of the real struggles they face, just as we do with our children today. They always provided the best that they could. And there was always something to eat. There were always clean clothes. There was always a place that was called home, that was neat and that was clean and that was inviting. And as a matter of fact, it was surprising for me to learn that we were even poor, even though the atmosphere of a ghetto life was all around me. It was the norm. However, my parents always showed us the other side of life where people who were more affluent lived and worked. They would pile us in the car on Sundays and we would drive in the suburban areas and they would dream and they would put those dreams in their hearts, not knowing that they were actually doing that. And they would say something to the tune of Dave or whomever, Connie or Maureen or whoever they were talking to. They would say, you know something? It's not where you live, it's how you live. And that made 52 Bassett Street the place that we all grew up in. It made that place a home. You see, what they did was they forged a dream. They forged a vision in each of our lives and our minds. And we pursued them as we became adults. And although we lived where people call in Albany and around the country, we lived in a place that is called the ghetto. My mother would consistently bring us up to a new place. She didn't let us have a quote unquote ghetto mentality. My dad wouldn't let us have a ghetto mentality. He showed us what it meant to go out every day and work. And there were times when he worked 3 and even 4 jobs at a time just to make certain that our lives were sustained. And this became a standard for how I would live. No matter where I settled, I made the neighborhood the best that I could, no matter where it was. And this was done by being a good neighbor and making the home that I lived in as inviting as possible on the inside and also on the outside. The education that my parents stressed, they paid off because each of our brothers, my brothers and sisters, each of them graduated from high school. That was my father's goal. All of us got good jobs and have made a better quality of life that James and Esther Trainum had. And you got to understand, when I said we graduated from high school back in the 50s and 60s, that was a great accomplishment for African Americans. Back in the 70s and 80s, that's when education as far as college was beginning to be more put into the hearts and the minds of the children of those days. My brothers, my sisters, they graduated, some of them, they graduated from college. But you know something? It all started with an education, graduating from high school. And it blesses me to see my daughters, nieces, and nephews continuing to bring their own lives to new levels despite the challenges of life in this generation. It blesses me to see them getting their degrees, getting their diplomas, seeing that, they're getting their bachelors and their masters. And, something, this is what living on a new level is all about. Because life always affords you choices. And apart from making decisions based on a fearful moment you are confronted with, what you value most will determine the decision you make about your life. You see, Notice what I said, apart from making decisions based on a fearful moment. Oftentimes, when the challenges of life come, what we have to be is willing to put making a decision on hold until everything calms down and you can make that decision with a clear mind. You see, life is made up of preferences. And what you must do is make certain that you have preferences already in place before you have to make a decision. Now, a preference is this, it's a first choice, it's a preferred choice, it's a choice that you make above other choices. And it's an aspect of life that few people see or even acknowledge. You're going to choose. And if you have the proper moral compass, remember we talked about this months ago now. You have a proper moral compass. You have the word of the living God as your standard for living. In practicing what you learn, you're going to make choices that are aligned with the principles that are right and just. And the mentality from the 60s and 70s, and they even wrote songs about it, was keeping up with the Joneses. And that continues to this day. It continues to infiltrate the minds and the lives of the generation that we live in. And although how someone else lives and what someone else has can be an inspiration to you, it must never be the gauge used to determine your success or your failure in life. Another person's level in life or their possessions are not the measurement used to determine whether you reach your potential and therefore achieve the new level that's in front of you. You must determine the preferences for your own life. What are the things that's going to cause you the greatest satisfaction? You see, when the spirit of competition is taken out of the equation, you become more comfortable with who you are and where you're living, and you continue to strive to make your life better. And if it doesn't get where you want to be, that's okay. As long as you're striving to get there and you're sincerely doing it, you're diligently doing it. Because as a society, especially here in the United States of America, we have a propensity to try to get everybody to live according to the dream that we have for our own lives or based on how we view life. And we neglect to realize that everyone has a different calling. And they too are striving to attain a different level in life. So where they are today will not be where they are next year. Where you are today, my friend, is not where you're to be next year. And therefore, how others live, where they live, their interests, and their view of life in general, the changes that they want to make as they're exposed to things on a greater level brings them to a place where they begin to experience those things that they've been hoping for. My friend, if you're not exposed to opportunities that make your life better, you will not see the potential that you could attain. Those things may surpass the things that you've been comparing your life to. Pastor, what do you mean? This is what I mean. Oftentimes, for us to go to a new place, we need to see someone who is actually living there. We need to see someone who is actually doing the things that we have in our heart to do. And as we are exposed to those opportunities to make our life better, what's going to happen is we're going to see that those things become a goal for us. Not that we want what they have, but it's inspiration for us to attain what we actually have in our own hearts. And so oftentimes we have to be exposed to opportunities that make our life better. See, once we are, we now begin to see potential in us. And that potential oftentimes surpasses what we have compared our own life to in the past. growing up, and before I started going outside of the south end area of Albany, all I can envision was a life in the south end area of Albany. But my mom and dad, as I alluded to a few moments ago, my mom and dad would pile us in the car on Sundays and drive us into suburban and rural areas. They planted a vision in us. They exposed us to opportunities that were out there, and they didn't even know what they were doing. And sometimes we have to be exposed to other areas, other businesses. We have to be exposed to the fact that we can be doctors and lawyers, and we can be assemblymen and senators. We can be the president of the United States of America. We can be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, or we can be the president of our own company that becomes one of the Fortune 500 companies. You see, we've got to be exposed to those opportunities. And what has to happen is we've got to be on guard for becoming trapped in a culture that promotes lifestyles that's impossible to attain for the majority of people. Because when I'm talking about presidents and senators and doctors and lawyers and all of these other great things, you got to understand that these things are not something that just are dropped into our lap. We've got to position ourselves, and we've got to methodically go up the ladder to attain each one of those levels. And so our perception of life must not become trapped in a culture that promotes lifestyles that's impossible to attain. Therefore, the things that are promoted within these societal values, they must be placed in proper perspective, because if they're not, you will spend a lifetime chasing a dream that will never manifest. Occupations that you have not prepared for, and lifestyles that require more resources than you have the ability to earn for, they produce shattered dreams. They've given false hope, and they cause discouragement for multiple millions of people around the world. And at some point, you must come to grips with the fact that you may have to work in an office, retail outlet, a restaurant, factory, or you must become, a support to someone else in providing for your family. But you must never settle there unless that's where you're called to, as no job is beneath us. You see, my friend, if you change your view of life, you can change the direction your life is heading in if you don't like it. And neglecting to change your perspective in a timely manner, it puts off the promotion you could have had. It also wastes productive years where you could have saved for a new home, a car, a college education, or saving for a future. You see, you got to use that place of employment as a stepping stone towards your vision. I know I didn't do that in the beginning stages of my life, even though I was making really good money. I wasted it. I smoked it up with marijuana. I snorted it. I popped it through pills. I lived a lifestyle that was detrimental to me building a great future. And it's only by the grace of God that I turned my life around. And I began to put it together the way that God wanted it to be, and also how deep inside I wanted it to be. And this tells me that you too, my friend, can change. No matter what you're faced with, no matter what you're struggling with, it takes a made up mind, and it takes a pursuit of your dream. And in pursuing your dream, you say, I'm putting everything that's holding me back off. Isn't that what the Bible says? It says, lay aside the weights and the sin that so easily besets you. It's keeping you back. And then it says, run with patience the race that's before you. My friend, pursue your dream. Do everything that you can to make your heart's desire a reality. If it's a business, corporate, educational, political, or sports professional, do it. If it's a recording artist, do it. If it's an entrepreneur, be the best you can. You see, something I learned from my father, but I did not understand until I had daughters and grandsons. It's the longevity of working with your mind over the limited or shorter period of time you have when earning a living. I'm going to say it this way. My father would tell me, and I quote, "You will not get rich working." Didn't understand it. And he would say he does not want us digging ditches. And that's why he stressed education. That's why he stressed getting a high school diploma. And this was not an indictment against the people who do physical work, because even in the beginning, you have to start out digging a ditch if you're going to become a owner of a corporate construction company. He wasn't against it. But what he was saying is all means of employment are noble and necessary. But if you want longevity, know that your body has limitations physically. And what you can easily do at 25 years old, you're going to have a difficult time doing at 55 years old. If you're forced into retirement at 50 or 55, you're going to lose 20 or more years of productive earning power because you cannot physically do what you did at 25. And this is why someone can run for president of the United States or run a corporation at 75 or 80 years old with full earning power. As a matter of fact, we have a president that's in his 80s, I believe. And he's running again. You see, they learn to work with their minds and not necessarily with their bodies, the physical parts of their bodies. And remember, especially in professional sports and occupations that require physical competency or ability, you have a very limited time to not only be selected, but a short number of years to be properly compensated for your service. And most professionals do not make multi-million-dollar salaries that we read about. And what has to happen is, if you are a person that's thinking about going into professional sports, you must have something else that you are planning to do when that career comes to an end. How many years do you get? Most people retire from a professional sports team by the time they're 35, 40 years old, maybe. But most of them retire before they're 30. And therefore, what you must do is use the jobs that require physical skills to make a living, while you use the experience of that occupation to make a better life for you by becoming the owner, a supervisor, or a leader, because those are who you are meant to be. And this gives you long-range earning power beyond the 50 working years that most people have. You see, as I close, in essence, what you must do is use the mental capacity that you have been blessed with in addition to your physical strength. This gives you long-range earning power beyond your Social Security income. If you have a family, you must give them the best chance of survival that you can. And this means be who you are on the level you're at and trust that the proper doors will open as you pursue your dreams. Be a person of principle and be a person who understands the importance of setting preferences that will highlight your character and integrity while ushering you to your next level in life. Be ready to change. Your next level awaits you. Don't get stuck on the level where you're at, but always look towards your goal because more is available for you. Next week, my friend, we're going to talk about being who you were created to be. See, and I don't know about you, but one of the most liberating things, and I might start off with this statement, one of the most liberating things that occurred is when I learned to walk in my own skin. I learned how to be David Trainum, and I didn't have to try to be like my brother. I didn't have to try to be like the next, the next sports hero. I didn't have to try to be like somebody on stage. I just needed to be me. And when I became the best me that there was, I became settled on who God created me to be. And that's what we'll talk about next week. And so until then, know, as I always say, you're in my prayers. Know that you're loved and know that God has great things in store for you. We will talk to you then. God bless you.